So,
what's happening, everybody, and welcome back to Weekly Top 5's from Library Chess Productions. This time around, we are dealing with our top 5 favorite science fiction, or as the kids call them, sci-fi movies of all time.
So I'm going to start it off with my number 5, Blade Runner 2049. A new one last year.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always coming out with the surprises. Just a little backstory, because most people probably haven't watched the movie awards on Bridgewater's Finest, his other YouTube channel. But when I saw Blade Runner 2049, I really wanted to love it, but I came out of it admiring a lot of it, but I didn't necessarily love it. I think I rated it like a 75 out of 100 when I first saw it. I was disappointed because we both love Villeneuve. There's a lot going for it that I love. But I was really tired when I watched it the first time, so I felt I was doing it dirty, so I watched it again when it came out on video. And while I would have liked to have seen it maybe again in the theater, I ended up absolutely adoring it the second time. And it wasn't my movie of the year because I gave it to Logan, but it was like right there, and it could have been movie of the year. It's not even necessarily Villeneuve's best movie, but it's just such a fantastic film. It's beautiful, and it's definitely like a science fiction movie through and through. It's better than the original Blade Runner, even though the original Blade Runner is also a great movie. Great performance by Gosling. It had everything going for it. It was smart. It was slow, but I never felt it was boring, mostly because, and I've said this before, you could take any shot from that movie and just hang it on your wall. It was so beautiful, and that really helped a lot to make me appreciate this movie. Because I'm a big style guy. I'm a lot easier on movies that have like a lot of style and little substance, even though this did actually have substance. But if you give me a movie that's full of beauty and an interesting visual aesthetic, then I tend to enjoy it more, even if the story is basic, which it is. The story's really good here too, full of heart, and so that's my pick, Blade Runner 2049, the movie that keeps on giving. Keeps on surprising this guy.
There's one thing that I need to say about 2049, and that is there's a list of movies, and it's not a super long list, I don't think, but there's a list of movies, especially from the last couple of years, that I would include on the list of it will benefit you to watch this movie a second time. Like, not even just because, like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever, watch it as many times as you can, but like, no, you need to watch this movie more than once. Yeah. And Blade Runner is absolutely, because I'm the same way. I really greatly benefited from watching that movie a second time.
Yeah.
It surprises me that it's on your list, but it shouldn't, I guess, because I know how much, especially after the second viewing, I know how much esteem you put into that movie.
It benefits a little bit from having just come out and it's fresh.
Yes.
I'm not saying that if we did this 5 years from now, I mean, that's a lot of movies in that time frame, but I'm not saying it makes it.
So my number 5 sci-fi movie of all time is actually the movie on my list that I think comes closest to breaking what we established right at the beginning of the video, where it has to be primarily this thing. But I would argue that it might be a 60-40 split, but I would argue that the 60 is sci-fi, so I'm going to classify it as a sci-fi movie. It's Her.
Yeah.
With Joaquin Phoenix and the voice of ScarJo, who I love almost as much as I love Ryan Gosling. But that's also 60-40. It's
not even close for me.
So Her is the story of, Joaquin Phoenix's character, who's kind of not a social outcast, but he's a really, socially anxious, whatever. And it takes place in a near future that is, very much something that even at the time, which was like 5 years ago, we could certainly conceive that like, this could be a potential. Like this AI, it's not totally outside the realm of possibility that artificial intelligence could be this. And it develops human emotions, and the two of them actually fall in love and have this relationship. And it's part of why I love it so much is that not only does it blend sci-fi and romance, which is a difficult thing to do. A lot of the romances in a lot of sci-fi movies are not bad, but either rushed or feel kind of cheesy or whatever. But this takes that romance and puts it at the forefront of the story, along with the technology of the near future and the development of artificial intelligence. And it's a great movie overall. It's the most heartbreaking sci-fi movie I've ever seen. But the fact that it melds those two together and the sci-fi elements are still so well done, and visually it's actually a really nice movie, and the slight advancements in technology from a visual perspective are taken care of and done really well. Her is my number 5. Great movie overall, but the sci-fi elements, excellent as well.
Yeah, I think that would qualify. I've never thought of that as anything other than a sci-fi movie. Now, right. I don't have a lot to contribute to this because I've never seen it. I didn't have any real interest in seeing it.
Okay.
But I should see it because so many people like it. Like, I knew you loved it. I didn't know it was top 5 material. I know our friend Zach, I think he loved it.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people love it, so I really should have seen it, but for some reason I just wasn't that interested. Okay, my number 4 is a movie called Dark City, which I actually did go back and rewatch because I wanted to, refresh myself. Because a lot of my favorite movies I've really only seen once. Alright, Dark City came out a year before The Matrix, and obviously The Matrix went on to be this big cultural event, and yada yada yada. The Matrix is a great movie. Dark City's better. And that's not criticizing The Matrix. But Dark City just kind of appeals to me more from a story perspective, and the fact that it's more film noir.
Yeah.
I love the concept of an ever-shifting city. But yeah, Alex Proyas directed this, and I really think he's one of the more underrated sci-fi directors, having done this and knowing, and I mean, people love The Crow. Because it's a little cheaper looking, because it doesn't have the budget of The Matrix, I think some people look at it, and yeah, some of the special effects are sillier, right? But if you can get past all that, and you haven't seen Dark City, you should really check it out because it's doing some really interesting things, although I would recommend the director's cut because the theatrical cut, while a little shorter, maybe a little tighter from a pacing perspective, it ruins kind of some of the twists right in the opening narration. And you don't need the opening narration. It's one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time, and it's one of the most underrated sci-fi movies of all time.
Very nice, very nice. That's it's actually a movie that I have not seen. So I wrote it down because it sounded very interesting. I didn't know that Proyas directed that, because I know Proyas did one thing that I really liked, and now I can't remember what movie it was. Sounds interesting. And the one thing that you kind of said about, like, oh, some people think the special effects are kind of cheesy, or things are cheesy. Sci-fi is a genre where you can get away with that. Like, not everything has to look like Blade Runner 2049. If it did, fantastic.
I mean, it was also in, like, 1998.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And we've come a long way even since then.
Right, yeah, exactly. No, you're right. I remember seeing it when I worked at Blockbuster. Like, seeing that we had the DVD. Yeah. And I was like, this looks interesting. I just never... You know what? I may have even wound up renting that as one of my 10 free rentals, and I'd never wound up... I rented so many movies that I never actually watched because we got 10 free ones, because that's the way Blockbuster worked.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't have the action scenes, I don't know if I said that The Matrix has. So if you're into the more kung fu action sequences in The Matrix, and that's what you want, then you probably won't. I mean, I'm not saying you, but anybody listening. If that's what you want, you probably won't like Dark City as much because it is kind of slower. And like I said, it's more film noir. Yeah. You're solving a murder and dealing with all that stuff.
And I'm down for that. I'm down for that.
I love like film noir, sci-fi kind of stuff. Yeah.
My number 4 sci-fi movie of all time is the movie that rejuvenated one of my absolute favorite franchises of all time. It is 2009's Star Trek, the J.J. Abrams reboot of the Star Trek franchise. And not only, I mean, visually, obviously, it's J.J. Abrams, so you got some lens flare in there, but for the most part, the visually, the movie looks great. And it takes... a little bit of time travel liberty, obviously, because JJ's literally saying, like, look, I need to restart this timeline, and I need to do this. Like, I need to do... This can be totally separate, like, the timeline here is still intact, but I gotta do my own thing here, and I gotta restart this timeline. It was done so remarkably well. The movie combines the, established talent with young stars that we haven't particularly seen before, and it did such a great job of rejuvenating that series that has meant so much to television, lesser extent to the movies. I mean, you've got Wrath of Khan, which is obviously like the definitive sort of original series Star Trek movie, and I would actually make the argument as someone who watched the Next Generation movies like a couple of years ago, I don't necessarily know that there was a great movie from the Next Generation version, but I mean, Next Generation's the best TV series. And he JJ'd it, and it was amazing. And the performances are really well done. Zachary Quinto as Spock is like a perfect casting. The reimagining of sort of the whole timeline, reimagining of characters even and their relationships. Star Trek's my number 4 because it brought back my love for that franchise.
Yeah, it would have felt good to feel that, but I'm not a Star Trek fan, so I haven't seen this. But I will say this. Mm-hmm. Chris Pine kind of puts in solid work and doesn't necessarily get the love that maybe he deserves. Because everything you see him in, he's putting in solid work. Just he's not really the name that maybe he could be.
Right.
All right, for my number 3, I'm going to go with a short film. I'm going to go with World of Tomorrow by the wonderful Don Hertzfeldt. Who I don't know if he's overlooked or not because he mostly makes short films. It's an animated short, crudely minimalist style, really. Except for some backgrounds he throws in a little bit more. But he always kind of animates with stick figures and stuff. But if you look at it like, oh, it's stick figures, you're missing the depth of his writing. Because there's a lot going on. Basically what it's about is this little girl who meets, I think, was it a version of herself? No, a version of someone else. I can't remember. See, now I love this movie and I can't remember that plot point.
Thank you for
making you feel good. But basically this older person starts talking to this little kid about all these crazy things that no kid could possibly understand because all she wants is lunch. Because what Hertzfeldt did, and this wouldn't always work, but it was genius, was he got dialogue from his niece, I think she was,
right,
and just worked the whole story around it. And it actually worked, and it kind of led to the charm of it. Because, like I said, there's something endearing about this kid having all this information, like, bombarding her, and she's just, I'm a kid. You're telling me all about these important things in life, and I'm just a kid doing stuff. Mind you, I've watched it twice, and I'm still a little confused by it, but he can tackle these subjects, but then he doesn't forget to make you laugh. There are legitimate laughs in here that made me chuckle quite a few times. Seek out World of Tomorrow and its sequel, which came out, I think, last year.
Yeah, I think so.
If you haven't seen it. And check out other Don Hertzfeldt stuff if you have not seen it. So my number 3 is World of Tomorrow.
Fair enough. I actually don't think I've actually watched them.
That's terrible because it's come up quite a few times in our videos.
It has.
On my end of the year list and conversation.
Yeah, and you've recommended them to me multiple times, and they're short films, so it's not exactly like it's a huge investment of time. I have no defense for the fact that I have not watched those movies. So my number 3 sci-fi movie of all time is one that I'm kind of using to sort of denote a specific franchise, because there's been quite a few of them, especially in recent years. So I'm kind of using it to denote the whole franchise, but I do legitimately think that this was certainly the best of the 3 of them. So my number 3 is War for the Planet of the Apes. That was just from last year. It was I think my number 1 movie from last year, or it was certainly up there, certainly in my top 3. And that whole, especially that trilogy that they kind of brought Planet of the Apes back and sort of redoing them for a modern audience. That trilogy is so complete and so tremendous and so well performed and so well written and so well everything. And I'm certainly taking that as a sci-fi movie because, again, it's what happens with genetic modification and stuff like that. So I mean, again, it's an action movie, it's an adventure movie, it's whatever. But I'm using sci-fi as the predominant genre here. And I mean, Andy Serkis obviously is the king in this kind of mocap. What if monkeys had feelings area? Like what if Gollum had feelings? I shouldn't say I love the concept of monkeys taking over the world. But
I do, because I don't like humans.
Because we don't like humans, fair enough. It's like it's the apes teaching us where we came from and using it against us. And especially this movie, I think, probably has the best performances of the 3 of them. You put Woody Harrelson in anything, and I'm like, I'm there for that. He's a genius. And so that's why I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use that as my number 3, because, again, I liked it just that much sort of better than Star Trek. It was a real debate between that and Star Trek. Star Trek, obviously, more higher sci-fi, if we want to call it, but this is an urban, down and dirty sci-fi style, more down to earth sci-fi style. But War for the Planet of the Apes is my number 3.
Okay, 1, Dawn is better. So up yours. No, but Dawn, I like Dawn more than War.
Fair.
But 2, I don't know if there's ever been like a trilogy of films where I've gone from caring so little to thinking so highly of it.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, there's a Planet of the Apes remake. I didn't even watch the first one when it came out.
Right.
I literally went to Dawn because I was like, this trailer's real sad.
Yeah.
I'm going to go see that because I'm real sad right now.
And I want to watch the monkey on the horse riding through flames.
But I'm like, why am I crying in this trailer? So I went and saw it and I was like, Dawn is so good. And then War's almost as good. I just found that at one part there was a bit of a lull for me, but it was still an excellent movie. All right, my number 2 is a little-known movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is actually showing again in select theaters.
Is it really?
Yeah. Huh. It's weird because from a box office perspective, it is actually it had like the highest per screen average last week. Jeez, where do you even start with a movie this good? Like it innovated. It's long but never boring. It actually scares the crap out of me in a couple scenes for some reason. The beginning scares the hell out of me, and then when you see the monolith later, that also, for some reason, something primal inside of me or something, it just terrifies me. And it's not even a horror movie.
No.
But for some reason, there's like 2 scenes in that movie that just terrify me. And it's weird because Kubrick has this knack for scaring me. Like, he taps into something, like in Eyes Wide Shut. For some reason, there's scenes in that scare the hell out of me. And I don't know what it is. It's like Kubrick just taps into something that I fear that I don't even know that I fear.
Right.
It has influenced so much, and even though it takes place in space, which could be infinite, it feels claustrophobic. Like Kubrick often does, it feels cold but not detached. Like you're not going to sit there bawling your eyes out, but yet it kind of grips you in some kind of emotional level, even though Kubrick himself would have said that he's a very cold director, right? Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have probably seen it, but if you haven't, go see one of the best sci-fi movies of all time, 2001: A Space Odyssey.
It's true. When you just use the term classic, and that's a classic in every sense of the word. It's a classic in the sense that it's old, but it's also a classic, like you said. It influenced so much, and it's so much that like it's been cited so often as just this, like one of the greatest, if not the greatest, sci-fi movies of all time. So that's one of those ones that it is a classic in every sense of the word. And like you say, Kubrick hits you on a level that is like subconscious to you. Like you're not aware of why you're so scared of these things, but then you're like, how do you know if I don't know? And that's the genius of the man, Stanley Kubrick.
Yes, it is.
The background noise you're hearing is technology rebelling against us. My number 2 sci-fi movie of all time, and this is where the argument might start. It's Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Yes, Force Awakens, to me, is the best of the Star Wars movies, and that's going to make a ton of people never want to watch anything or listen to anything I have to say ever again. Yes, he's gone. Welcome to the Bridgewater's Finest Movie Awards. No, maybe I'm just the Abrams guy, and maybe that's why I'm saying this. But
yeah, I can't understand that because I'm really not an Abrams guy. Like, he made some good stuff.
Fair enough. But to me, and I realize that like what I'm saying is blasphemy. This was only ever going to be one of 2 movies in this franchise. It was either going to be Force Awakens or Empire Strikes Back. And to me, this is just that little bit better. And I don't know if it's the modern way that it looks. I don't know if it's, like, Kylo Ren's not a better villain than Darth Vader. I'm not going to say that. But I really love Kylo Ren as a villain because he's actually a villain with much less agency than any of the other villains in Star Wars, and I actually find that endearing about the character. I kind of find it interesting that he so very much wants to be Darth Vader. He so very much wants to be that badass, and he's not. And that his journey to try to get there, which I think is ultimately what's going to happen with this next movie, that journey has been so very appealing to me. And of course, he's Adam Driver, he's my boyfriend. So I'm just like, yes, great, Kylo Ren, give me more Kylo Ren. I so loved this movie when it came out, and a lot of people did, and a lot of people have, and I think you're even in this group, have not so much soured on it since, but the shine has worn off of it from when we first watched it. We were like, oh my god, it's back! And then, and even for me, the shine, I guess, has probably kind of come off of it a little bit, but that just goes to show you how much shine was on it in the first place, because it was a movie that so met and fulfilled and exceeded all of my hopes and expectations for it when I watched it. And I just, maybe I'm just the Abrams guy, but like, it was going to be a Star Wars movie, and it's going to be this one. So Force Awakens is my number 2 sci-fi movie of all time.
Yeah, we did a movie awards the year it came out, and I think I had a top 5, and now I'm just sitting here being, why? Why did I have a top 5? I still enjoy it, but I'll knock it down to like, I think I rated it like a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Because I was so caught up in it. Because it was such a cultural event, a legit cultural event.
Yes.
That I came out of it, and the people I saw it with, they were so pumped, and then I was so pumped, and everyone in the theater was so pumped, and then afterwards, it's like, well, the movie wasn't really that good. It was fine. I enjoy it. There's a lot I don't like about it, but there's some stuff I certainly do enjoy about it. So I'm probably these days more of a 7 out of 10. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's even good. It's good. It's just not great or this.
Or this. or this guy. Movies at the end of the day are always going to be subjective.
Yep.
And I could still sit here and watch that movie and just be like, no, this is, like, I'm in love with this. Like, I love this so much. The characters across the board, I love them. And sure, Last Jedi's not as good. I get that, but like this, even if you just take this movie self-contained, I just love it. If we get a thumbs down for that, I hope it's my fault. I hope you call me out specifically in the comments.
Yeah, so that's a thing that happened. Let's go to my number 1, a movie that's significantly less popular. It is Stalker, the greatest movie from one of the greatest directors, Andrei Tarkovsky.
Yep, and you mentioned this in a previous video.
Yep, this is one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
There you go.
Now, he kind of broke our definition with Her at the beginning a little bit. I'm breaking it a little bit with Stalker because while I think it is enough of a sci-fi movie, it's really not what you envision a sci-fi movie as. Kind of a sci-fi movie. I mean, it gets labeled as a sci-fi movie, but if somebody was like, no, it's more of a drama, then I'd probably be like, well, maybe so. But it doesn't matter. I'm picking Stalker because what this is, I rewatched this one as well because, I don't know, I want to refresh my memory on it. It's beautiful. Long shots, as always. It's intelligent. It's philosophical. It is slow and long, but that doesn't bother me at all because I just find like every shot of his is just so perfectly done. But yeah, Stalker is one of those great foreign sci-fi flicks, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time by one of my favorite directors of all time. So that's my number 1.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I said, as soon as you said Stalker, I was like, well, that makes sense because it was on his top 5 of all time. So I'm like, okay, well that certainly makes sense. Yeah, again, a movie that I haven't seen, and when you kind of make the point about like foreign sci-fi, there's still so many people that will completely shy away and completely discredit foreign movies, and it's like you're missing out on some of the best cinema ever, and even within the context, if you like sci-fi, and you can't ignore a movie like Stalker just because it's not American.
And with him, it's especially hard because you really have to be in the mood for his movies because you're talking about a guy who made average shot lengths like over a minute, you know? And most people are used to that quick cut. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't want to watch Stalker every day because I got to be in the mood for it because it is so slow.
Right.
But I love it when I'm in that mood for it, and I'm glad I rewatched it just to make sure. I didn't rewatch it on the top 5 movies, which I probably should have, but I rewatched it for this, and it held up.
And if anybody's still listening to anything I have to say, I'm going to close off the video with my number 1 sci-fi movie of all time. And you kind of talked about foreign sci-fi. This is kind kind of foreign sci-fi,
yeah.
but it's made in, I think it was, well, it's kind of split 50-50. It's District 9.
I was right. I knew it.
All right, right on.
I knew it.
Neil Blomkamp, who basically says, like, okay, you know how there was apartheid in South Africa? Well, now it's here again, except with aliens. And it was like, okay, that's an interesting kind of theory. And then I watched the movie and I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually tremendously well done and really well performed, and the hits the emotional beats that it needs to get, especially like with the alien characters and with the human characters, and such a great marketing campaign too. And I don't usually like to talk about movie marketing campaigns, but I mean, this started and we had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why are there these websites, and this one in particular, that's like talking about alien apartheid like it's a real thing that's actually happening. District 9, top to bottom, it's the kind of sci-fi that I absolutely love, which is, it's not really action sci-fi at all. It's sci-fi that's got this really solid story behind it, and it's character driven, and it's got some action beats in it, but it's not wholly dependent on its action. And that's why I've always liked something like Star Trek, because Star Trek to me has never been action sci-fi. It's always been story-based sci-fi and character-driven sci-fi. And that's what this movie is. And you have great alien characters, and you have either irredeemable, crummy humans, or you have the one human that's like, you're kind of okay. It's a great sci-fi movie. It's one that you kind of have to invest in, because there is a bunch of it that's not in English, and it's not the most accessible sci-fi movie, but it's one that's so worth it. And I don't know if the sequel is still planned, or if they still want to do the sequel, or what the update is on that. But I mean, Neil Blomkamp knocked this one out of the park, and it's one of his directorial debuts, or certainly the first time that I had ever heard his name. So District 9 is my number one.
Yeah, people forget that movie blew the doors off. Like, for him to announce himself to the world, and he's never done anything that good since.
No.
Now, I'm less harsh on his other movies, but it's hard to deny that District 9 is best. It was an honorable mention on mine. I considered it. The reason I didn't put it on is because I love the first... See, I don't know how long the movie is. Let's just assume it's an hour and a half. I can't remember. Like, the first maybe hour of it is this excellent social commentary, and I was so into it. And then when they decided, oh, we need a climax for this, let's have some action.
Right.
It kind of lost me a little. The action was still a lot of fun, but the stuff before it was so much better. So it is a bit of a problem, and I feel that the climax of a movie lets it down a little bit, because that really should be the best part. But with that said, I criticize it for that, but it never took me out of the movie. I still enjoyed it. I still rated it very highly, and I did consider it for my own list. It just was beaten out by 2049.
And that sequel better get made.
See, I don't know if I want the sequel. I don't need it. I'll go watch it.
Right, fair enough.
I'll go watch it, but I don't know that I need it. I don't know. I actually didn't know anything about it until you just said it. So.
Yeah, see, like, because they had talked about doing it for so long, and then now it's been radio silence. So, I mean, that just may be in development hell. It just may never get out.
He's not the director in people's eyes that he once was. You know,
no,
now he's
true.
been doing these, like, short films on YouTube as Oat Studios, which are actually cool little... I think he's doing it to see if people like it. Maybe he can get funding for some of them. But he's doing some cool little short films in there. But yeah, there was a time where people... Like, he was going to do an Alien movie and stuff, and people wanted him on everything, and now people are like, But people forget how good District 9 is. Even if you don't like Chappie or Elysium or whatever, District 9 is a masterpiece.
Y'all forgot about District 9.
Y'all forgot about District 9, not this guy.
So, hopefully I returned the tiniest bit of credibility from the fact that I put Force Awakens as my number 2 sci-fi movie of all time. Alright folks, that's going to do it for another weekly Top 5. Like, comment, subscribe, follow us down here, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.